Hey everyone, I'm Andy. Welcome to the Self-Made Podcast. This is a series where I interview teachers. This first episode, I'm going to be interviewing Garrett, who is the lead guitarist of the band Prisoners of Love and a music teacher who goes to Berklee with me. Just a disclaimer, we're going to be censoring out the name of the new vocalist to Prisoners of Love who hasn't been announced yet, as well as the name of the school that Garrett used to teach at, just to protect his privacy.
Yeah, that's what matters.
All right.
Are you not going to be in the shot? Is that
I'm in that shot.
You're in that shot.
Yeah, I am.
Hi.
All right. So let's start by just having you tell me a bit how you've been keeping yourself busy at Berklee this past month. Is that through Prisoners of Love?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's pretty much Prisoners of Love. I'm a songwriting major, so I have to do a lot of like assignments where it's like, write a song, man. Write another song, man. You're doing 3 songs this week, man. Get hyped, you know. So like, that can be a lot of work, and also, you know, as we said, Prisoners of Love, like, we've been trying to put a set together because we got like shows coming up and a new vocalist.
Did we just get a big reveal on this podcast?
We've kind of hinted at it, so, you know.
And what has the dynamic been like without a vocalist for this past, how long has it been?
I think it was a full semester, pretty much.
So how did the dynamic change of the kind of stuff you were writing during that time?
Well, we should talk about how it was with Ethan first, if we're going to talk about that. So, like, with Ethan, it was pretty much, while we're working on the instrumental, wait, hang on. Do you, like, look there? Is that a thing? Do I need to be looking there?
No.
Okay.
I'm just checking the audio.
Oh, okay. I thought you were, like, making eye contact for TikTok. I thought you were like, hey, TikTok. Anyway, what was I saying? With Ethan, while we're working on the instrumental, Ethan's working, he's like scribbling the lyrics, or he's just listening, trying to figure out what he's going to do. So, the first change was like, instead of like me or Ali, like just writing lyrics occasionally, or like writing a vocal part occasionally, the big change was now if there's going to be a vocal part, we are responsible for it. So that was a big change because, you know, even Copperhead, like I technically wrote like the vocal and pretty much the whole vocal part, but I didn't have to sing it, you know. I mean, I had to sing my part, but not the lead part, you know, because there's a like, I start to cast. My part's blue bonnets fly past, and Ethan's is blue bonnets fly past. So like, I don't have to worry about what Ethan's doing. I just got to worry about what I'm doing. And Ethan has all the high, you know, the hard parts that I can't do good. So that was pretty cool. But without Ethan, now if there's a part, me or Ali have to sing it. So that was a big change. Then there's another thing I was going to say. Oh, yeah, a lot more instrumentals. You know, we got really into writing instrumentals. Like we got Voyage of Big Johnny, which is like... Add that in post. There's no studio recording of that. Just add it in post, you know, just like add like any old song in post. Put like Sweet Child of Mine over that. It'll be cool. Anyway, actually do that. Put Sweet Child of Mine, like edit that in.
That would be great.
Yeah. So like we were like almost half the set, if not more, was instrumentals as a trio. So now with the new vocalist, we can't just default to what we did with Ethan because this is a new person and it's, you know, they have a different process. So we've been kind of doing the Tool thing where like we write an instrumental and the vocalist will still be in the room with us while we're doing that. It's just we'll write the instrumental, and this process of like recording that instrumental just in the room on our iPhone and then sending it to the vocalist. I'm trying not to gender them to keep at least a little bit of surprise. But then the vocalist will listen to the recording, and then that vocal... When is this coming out, actually? It might be revealed by then.
I'm not sure yet. I can also cut anything that you don't want to include.
I'm just gonna start saying her name. Her name, just because of the way that she kind of works. I'm officially okay with using pronouns now, I think. You don't have to bleep out she.
Okay.
The vocalist is a she. This is big news. This is a big lore drop.
On the Lessonaire podcast.
Thank you, Lessonaire, for providing a platform for this massive lore drop. Anyway, speaking of which, for doing this interview, can I get like one of the $1 things? Because I'd like to take out an ad.
Did we just make a sale on the Lessonaire podcast?
Yeah, if you say no, I'm gonna buy one anyway.
Yeah, of course you can.
Awesome.
And anyone can make a listing.
We're kind of doing the tool process of like we send the track and then she kind of works on it on her own and then brings in her part the next time we practice. We've been practicing about 2 times a week, sometimes upping it to 3 if necessary, or down to 1 if we're all busy, but we shoot for like 2. So that's how that's been going. We've got 3 songs done with this process. Because Ethan used to just write on the fly, but I think the way he writes is a lot more structured and a lot more like, there's kind of an improvisational quality to Ethan's lyrics and especially his melodies. You'll hear like wild variation between the way he does it in the studio and the way he does it like live. Is basically he would change it up every time. So it's a lot more considered and it's a lot more structured and the parts are really consistent, but she kind of needs more time to work something like that out.
Right.
So that's kind of been new. We weren't like we just kind of assumed it would be the same, but it wasn't, and I'm glad we didn't get crazy anxious about that. We were able to just kind of work it out. It took a bit of time, but like, I think really that just kind of goes to show that when you've found like the right person for the band, if you've had a previous member filling the role, things are gonna change, and that's why we stopped doing like the old album material, like we're not gonna play that anymore. It's because in some ways we're a different band, right? So you can't expect things to be the same way they always were. So yeah.
And are you teaching right now? Or are you taking tell me a bit about that.
I've got 1 private student that I'm teaching at this time. That was the most like politician way I could have said that. I have a student right now. She wanted to learn guitar, so I was like, I teach.
And how difficult is it to balance that with a full course load at Berklee?
I mean, honestly, not that bad. This is a pretty like beginner student, so I'm not having to dig deep into like drilling up specific ideas for the student, I mean, well, I guess that kind of segues into me talking about generally how I teach both and outside. I pretty much try to let it be student guided, right? Because I always hated it when I would have a teacher and they just tell me exactly what to do and work on this, so I kind of try to like, I don't want them to just like come to me for tabs, because you can get that on the internet, right? Mm-hmm. So if somebody comes to me and they're like, I want to learn this song, if there's something they're specifically struggling with, we work on that. If they can't read tabs, I'll teach them tabs, stuff like that. If they're struggling with sheet music, I can help with that a little bit, but that's not really my forte.
Right.
I mean, look at me, I'm over here like but like the way I do it with beginners is I usually try to gauge what they're interested in, right? Because they don't always know. You kind of have to do a little bit of mind games to figure out like what it is that attracted them to guitar. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I'm like, okay, how can I support that in a way that wouldn't just be me telling you to do stuff, right? Because again, I hate that, it's just the way I learn. I like to be, I'm really self-guided when I'm learning. So, some students need a lot more guidance than that, and I can still do that, but I like it to be a choice. Like if you want to work on the pentatonic scale, I can show you the scale and just you can mess with it if that's how you learn. But if you want like specific solo recommendations, like if you want to learn specific things, then I will show you solos that use the pentatonic scale, and that's kind of how I run it. So in the case of this student that I have right now, it's pretty relaxed because I'm still kind of gauging like where she's at. I'm assigning stuff that I've assigned to a lot of students before, so I'm not having to do a lot of work outside of the lessons. So, and it's just once a week, and it's just one student, so it's really not that bad. But if I had more students or like more advanced ones that I was needing to like do some homework on, I feel like that could get tricky, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And that actually leads into the next question, which is asking how you learned guitar and how did those experiences impact you as a teacher today?
So when I started, I was like, I should talk about the piano. Okay, so when I was like 6, my parents made me learn piano, right? I was one of those kids, one of those sets of parents. And I hated it. I didn't hate music, but I hated piano for a few reasons. Foremost being, one, they were telling me what to do, and like I said earlier, you know, I get frustrated by that. I'm really stubborn about music specifically. Like, I want to do it this way, you know? So when they were telling me, like, all right, go home and work on, like, you know, there's a piano here. It's not in either shot, but there is a piano here. So they're just gonna look. It's just gonna look like you added that in.
We'll keep it.
When they would give me an assignment like that, you know, I was that terrible student that just would come in every week like, I played the stuff I already know, you know, like I wouldn't actually work on the new material unless I actually liked it. And even if I did actually like it, I felt no attachment to piano. You know, I just did not enjoy it. So for like 6 years, from 6 to like 12, I was doing piano. And then I got off the hook because I started doing bassoon in like middle school band. So my parents were like, all right, you don't have to take piano lessons anymore because you're learning a different instrument. And I was like, okay, I hate this too though, you know? So then it ended up over the summer of 7th grade going into 8th grade, when I was 12 to 13, I guess, and somewhere in there, I found my grandfather's guitar actually for the second time. I had made an attempt at learning before, but I didn't really know any guitar music. That's a lie. I didn't know what a guitar sounded like yet, so I didn't know what I was looking for. But now I kind of knew a little bit what a guitar is. Should I hold this? I feel like you're having to like... Your arm has to be getting tired.
I'm doing okay.
It was my second attempt at picking up guitar, and this one was fueled by frustration because I had heard Smashing Pumpkins Today, the one where it's like... A little out of tune, sorry, but
That's totally fine.
I'd heard that lick and I was like, there is no way I can't play that. Like, no way, dude, no way. That's easy. That has to be easy. There's no way that is a difficult thing to play. So I found my grandfather's guitar again, and it was a 1972 SG Deluxe, I believe. No, SG Pro. It's the one with the P90s. And it's kind of a weird SG because it's got a Les Paul pick guard, but it's not a Les Paul. A lot of people hate that guitar now. I guess I kind of get it. It's kind of weird. Anyway, I had that guitar and I started plonking around on it, and I actually kind of couldn't play today. It was a little harder than I thought it was. It was the second learn. Maybe I did. I don't remember so good anymore. But I was fueled by frustration. That's what I remember. I just kept hearing riffs, and I was like, there's no way I can't play that. Like, that sounds so easy. And basically what happened was I ended up settling on... This is embarrassing deep lore. The first riff I learned properly and could play was like... And if you don't know what that is,
It's 3 days grace.
it is 3 days grace, and I'm not terribly happy about that. I really wish it was somebody who had like a pronounced impact on like my playing. You know, I wish the first riff I learned was like a Michael Schenker riff or a Buckethead riff. That would have been awesome. But now the first riff I ever learned will forever and always be a 3 days grace song. And that is the life I am living. So, but that was the first riff I got down. And the reason I liked it and the reason I stuck with it was because of the satisfaction of like working out on my own how to get the right hand to link up with the left hand. And, because it's across 3 strings, this wasn't like Seven Nation Army where you're just dealing with one, or like Smoke on the Water, stuff like that. Actually, when I was like 4, I learned Smoke on the Water, the easy version, so I can say that was the first riff I learned.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
it's Smoke on the Water, easy version. Not 3 days grace.
Not 3 days grace. But it kind of was 3 days grace. I liked it though because it moved across all the strings, and it was the first time I tried to do something like that. And the coordination and like the feedback of the strings on my right hand, the way like it pushed through, was so satisfying. I loved that feeling of the pick flopping over the string, and it was the right one. And also I hated the feeling of when it was wrong. So it was extra satisfying when I got it right. Because, the note kind of dies out when you're accidentally muting it or when you hit the wrong one, or it doesn't feel the same when you hit an open string that you weren't trying to hit, stuff like that, So it was really enjoyable to click that in and get it right. So the real big advantage, though, was that I got to pick what I worked on. For some reason, my parents were like, if you're learning on your own, you don't need lessons. I'll never get that fully, But I guess something about guitar seemed to them more like a instrument you could learn on your own as opposed to piano. I don't know, maybe there's merit to that. I don't know. Regardless, though, I was really fueled by like the realization I made where I realized the big distorted sound that you hear, like the da 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 da. I realized that was a guitar after I started playing guitar, and I was like, I can make that sound? Nobody told me that was an instrument. I didn't even think about it. I just figured it was like some magic thing they conjured up somewhere, I'm like 12, 13 at this point, and I'm not awake, I'm a baby, I'm asleep. So like cognitively, my brain hasn't woken up yet. I'm not a real person yet, I'm like, I'm asleep at the wheel, So like this was the first time I had like awoken to the reality of what a guitar was, and I was losing my little mind. I was like, not only is it really satisfying to do, not only is it my favorite kind of music, because I loved like Foo Fighters and Ozzy Osbourne and that kind of stuff when I was a really little kid. Funnily enough, I'm at Berklee now, and a song that I was completely obsessed with when I was like 8 was a Joe Stump song, and it's Speed Metal Messiah, the one where it's like So like in my first semester here, I went to him and I was like, give me the tab for that in his office hour. But anyway, so that sound, was like the one I was after, and it was satisfying, and it was the music I liked, and it was huge, and I was playing into like a crappy old Vox solid state practice amp that that wasn't good enough for my grandfather, so he never used it. And I didn't know how it worked, and it had a microphone input jack that was a 1/4 inch. So I assumed it says input, that must be where the guitar goes. So I was getting my distortion by plugging into that and cranking the volume. That was the only way I could get it. And I really wanted a distortion pedal, so then I got no CD for Christmas, which is a big deal to me. And then later that day on Christmas, I realized I've been plugging into the wrong input jack, and I'd been practicing for like 3 months without distortion when the amp had it all along. But the pedal sounded better, so it's still an upgrade. Really, I guess after that, it became what inspired me directly correlated to what I learned, right? There was no middle person there. I didn't have a teacher for like 2 or 3 years or something. Like I went for a long time self-taught. And it was really only when when I wanted to get more proficient at like improvisation, and I wanted to fill in the holes of what I'd already figured out, that was when I went to a teacher. But I wanted to figure out as much as I could on my own first, because that was just so much more satisfying to me. I wanted to figure it out. I didn't want somebody to tell me what to do. This is kind of turning into an anti-lesson ad. My apologies. I still think lessons are valuable. It just wasn't the right choice for me like that early on, because I wanted to figure it out on my own first. So what ended up happening was, after a couple or 3 years or so, I was like, okay, I know the pentatonic scale. I'm kind of figuring out the natural minor scale, but I don't fully know how to use them, and I'm kind of getting bored. Like, it's not as inspiring to me now, because there's not as many. I've kind of already learned the things that really catch my attention, and then the things that I haven't learned yet, I don't really have a chance of figuring out on my own. So now I'm ready for lessons, So then I went to a teacher. He was really helpful, but I still didn't quite like how he was picking the solos for me, Like, it was, I'm going to give you this solo because I think it's a good example of this, rather than, like, here's a few ideas for something you could learn, what would you be interested in? Or, like, do you have an example of something that uses this that you could bring in and we could work out, So, that kind of became like I learned a lot in that period, but I still was frustrated because it wasn't completely self-guided like it was before, So, that's such a long story, and I'm sorry about how that influences my teaching now. I have had the point in my head this whole time. I just, needed to set it up. Was I really don't want to just tell a kid, like, do this, do that, do this, do that. Because I just think that can, at least for a kid like me who, is into this because of the kind of rock and roll, like, I'm going to do what I want attitude, having a teacher just tell you do this kind of ruins it. It kind of shreds apart the whole ethos of, like, it's kind of antithetical to that. So my goal as a teacher is to be consistently inspiring, and not to just kind of squash down ambition and stuff, So, like, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I try to let the students guide the lesson, right? So every lesson I ask, what have you been working on? What are you into right now? That kind of thing. Every single time. Especially when I was a substitute teacher, so I wasn't with these kids every week, so I didn't know what they were working on. And every time, like clockwork, hey, how long have you been playing? What are you working on? What do you want to work on? If you're not satisfied with what you're doing right now, So that is really important to me as a teacher. I really try to, like, let the student guide, because I wanted to guide myself. So I wanted my teacher to be somebody who I could go to for, like, questions and, like, what is this thing? So that's who I try to be for my students. And if there is a riff that they're trying to work on that maybe there isn't tabs for or something, I can help with, like, working out what the notes are and stuff. I can do tabs. It's just not what I like to do, because I think there's so many resources on the internet, like, you don't really need me for that, So early on, I try to teach, like, tabs and stuff so that kids can work out riffs on their own, so they don't need me to do that. And then we can focus on, like, if they're into technique. I know a lot of technique. I know a lot of that kind of, I know, like, all the, like, all the baloney stuff. And even if I don't know it from being able to play it, I know how to do it roughly, so I can still help with it. Like, I don't personally know the Stanley Jordan thing. Do you know who that is?
I don't.
Okay, Stanley Jordan is, like, basically running around playing the guitar like a piano. He'll run, like, a full bass part down on the bottom 3 strings and then tap the melody, sometimes with 2 different guitars. It's incredible. You should check out Stanley Jordan. But I can't do that, obviously. If I could, I'd be doing it all the time. Yeah. But I have played piano, and I do know how to do multi-finger tapping. So if a student was like, I'm interested in that, even though it's not my thing, I feel like I have enough insight on the mechanics of the instrument that I would be able to help with that, you know? I forgot how that tied in though. What got me here?
No, thank you for sharing all of it. It was good insights, good stories. Yeah. And you touched on the next question that I wanted to ask, which is, you taught it.
Yeah.
What was not so good about it, and do you prefer teaching in a studio or independently?
Right. So I will say this: I don't hate or anything. They were wonderful to me. There weren't like administrative problems with. I didn't have any issues with them. But I think the problems that I had personally with the program were just due to ways in which my personal teaching philosophy kind of clashed with theirs, and just some of the general problems that you can run into as like a part of a studio as opposed to being independent, right? So like, I'm sure that, again, I have no ill will towards. I went there as a kid. I've taught there. I think it was great, but as a teacher now who has done both, not that I'm crazy experienced, but I've done it. The first thing that jumps out to me is that with it was very focused on, let's learn this song because you're gonna be doing it in your ensemble and you have to be ready for that. So basically every lesson was just getting the kids ready for the big show, that they're doing together. And that has merit, that's not a bad system. But the problem I kept running into as a sub was that when the kids were really interested in theory and really wanted to go beyond just learning songs, I felt like they didn't have the time in the private lessons at the studio to like learn that kind of stuff, like I felt like the resources weren't quite there because, again, like it needs you to be ready for the program, and they need you to be ready for the ensemble, and that's like a respectable goal. You can't have like some kids who know the songs and some kids who don't, but one of the big advantages of an independent contractor in terms of like lessons would be an independent teacher, would be that whatever you want to work on, we can spend the whole lesson on that. There's no time issues, like I don't have to spend half the lesson working on this song that you're struggling with that you might not even really be that into. You're only with like, it's, at least in my philosophy, you're only working on things you're really interested in, and I think that's really neat. That's how I would like to be teaching. The other issue I had was that can kind of function like a daycare. So this is kind of the more funny story area. So, okay. You got like 5-year-olds, right? You got a lot of 5-year-olds. And some of them are just kind of there because their parents are a little busy and need to drop off the kids for a bit. And that's just how it is with teaching sometimes, like parents are always looking for extracurricular activities for the kids, sometimes just to get a break, sometimes because they're trying to expand the kids' horizons. There can be a lot of reasons for it. But I've had like 5-year-olds walk in, sit down and be like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm trying to teach guitar." And he's like, "Zelda." And I'm like, "Okay, you want to learn a Zelda song?" He's like, "Not really." And I'm like, "Cool, man. So let's work on the track." And he's like, "Pokemon." And I'm like, "Okay, you want to learn a Pokemon song?" He's like, "I'm trying to distract you." I had a kid say that, like, "I'm trying to distract you." Like, they directly told me that. And there's two problems there as specific to being in a studio. Again, not really problem. It's just kind of the nature of running a studio. My experience was the one I was in. I felt like I had a good experience there, and I don't really have anything bad to say about them. But as just a business model, as like a pillar of our society, they don't really have anything they can do about that. Like, you can't tell the parent, like, "Yeah, this kid sucks." You can't say, like, "This kid doesn't want to be here. What are you doing?" You can't just, like, turn away a kid. That's kind of awful. Yeah. So as basically a contractor there, you know, I can't tell them this kid doesn't want to be there because that doesn't accomplish anything. But independently, I have that kind of power. If a kid just doesn't want to be there, I could, if I needed to, I could tell a parent, like, I don't think this is working out. You know, I can't do that. I have to, you know, deal with it.
And was it independent contractor position at...
I was a sub. It wasn't, I keep saying that because it's kind of analogous, but it's not the same thing. So, I was not full time. I just kind of filled in, you know, when like somebody was on tour or something like that. So I felt like an independent contractor. I didn't have like a schedule. I didn't have, you know, like involvement with a lot of things that a real teacher would have had involvement with. So I felt like that, but it's definitely the wrong language. Like, you should probably get a clip of me saying substitute teacher and then put that over every time I say that, because it's wrong. And then clearly show my mouth saying the wrong thing just to generate as much confusion as possible. As like an independent teacher, you can also pick your students, right, to some extent. So like I can meet with somebody before I'm accepting them fully as a student, and they're not going to reach out to me, you know, if they don't actually want to learn, you know, like you'll throw your kid in, you won't throw your kid as much at like somebody who's advertising advanced guitar lessons, you know, that just doesn't really happen as much. You know, you know, you have the ability to market yourself in a way that's conducive to the kind of students that you want to teach. Again, every student you turn away is also money that you're turning away. So depending on where you are, depending on the market, that might not be feasible. But here in Boston, at least, there's a lot of adults looking for lessons, and there's a lot of people who want to get better who are already pretty good. And even like, you know, I've kind of been dunking on kids a little bit. I had some great kid students that, you know, there were some kids who really wanted to learn and were good. You know, you could like show them something, they just pick it up. And which kind of ties into another advantage of being independent is like, if I see a kid's really good at just picking up the songs, I don't have to work on that with them. I can just say, you're really good at this. Like, you can look up tabs, dude. You got this. But with like, I would kind of have to focus on that because I had to make sure they were ready for the ensemble. But on my own, I can say, you're good at this. What else are you interested in? And then they might say theory. They might say, I want to learn how to sweep pick. That's common. A lot of kids want to learn how to sweep pick. Unrelated, this is just a clip you should use. I saw a kid like walk on a guitar once. Like I need to talk about this. I had like
let's hear about this.
I had like a 4-year-old come in, and it was just a cute little kid, and he's just like, hi, you know, like he's a little kid, and I'm just like, yeah, man, let's you know, I put on my little kid voice, and I'm like, yeah, man, let's get started. So what do you want to work on? And he's like, I'm gonna go get some water. He puts his guitar down on the floor, stands up, walks on it to the bathroom. On his way back, walks on it again, picks it up, drops it, and then picks it up again, puts it on their lap, and then it like falls, you know, because they don't know how to balance it, and they're like doing this whole thing, and I'm like. I'm like, this, okay, because you can't do anything about that. They're like 4, you know, like, treat your instrument with respect, I guess, but like, you don't know what respect means because you're 4 years old. No, I didn't know what respect meant when I was 4. When you're 4, you're basically like, at least for me, I was basically an alien, you know, I didn't know what was going on. So, I feel like I couldn't have been taught that, you know, even by like the greatest teacher on earth. So, I'm just like, I'm just flabbergasted. I don't even know what to do. I'm just like, all right, man, let's get started. Another time I'm like in the parking lot and I see this kid who doesn't have a case for their guitar. Maybe they do have one. I don't know. Dragging it on the pavement. They're holding it by like here and dragging it on the asphalt. It's not pavement, it's asphalt. Maybe I actually don't know if that's mutually exclusive. I'm not a teacher in all subjects, but it's just, oh my god! Can you imagine how scuffed this part of the guitar must be? Like that, it was wild. And you know, like when I'm teaching on my own, one thing I like to do is parts of the guitar, how to treat the guitar, because that's one of the few things I consider to be like mandatory. Even if a kid's not expressly interested in that, I still kind of run through it because it's fast and easy, and even if you don't like it, it's worth learning, and it doesn't take more than like 2 lessons worth of learning to have it down. Like, this is a headstock. You already know that now. You've got that. That's pretty easy to remember. So even if you don't like it, I'm going to force you to do it just because it's so easy, you might as well, and it's useful. But, yeah, those 4-year-olds, man, this 4-year-olds, like, just showing up because their parents need them to be somewhere, and they're just, like, showing up, and they're just like, yeah, man, woohoo! And they're just dropping their guitar everywhere. I also had, like, one kid, I was teaching an ensemble, and she, like, got up on the windowsill because I was trying to show something to another kid, and she gets up on the windowsill. Another really nice thing about independent, I don't have to do the ensembles anymore. That's, like, huge for me. I hate doing the little kid ensembles. The older ones are fun because, you know, I kind of get to do my normal band leader kind of thing. But the ensembles, I have some stories about the ensembles, dude.
Yeah, let's hear about that, because I also wanted to ask if you teach group lessons, which it sounds like you have in the past.
Yeah.
And if you prefer one-on-one lessons to that. Okay,
here's the thing. It's a real, like, you got a Hydra. One head loves you, the other head hates you. The older kids, they're awesome. I can tell them how to do something, and they're engaged, and they listen to it, you know, and they actually, you know, if they don't want feedback, that's cool. I've been there. You know, sometimes I'm just like, dude, I like what I'm doing. I don't want you to mess with me. But, like, generally, they are there to receive feedback pretty expressly. So, like, if they're playing something wrong, I can show them how to do it, and next week they'll actually learn it because, you know, they're older kids. They can keep up with that, you know. The younger kids, I had a group of, like, 5-year-olds, and every single lesson they would bunch around me and go, "Peaches, peaches, peaches, peaches," because of the new Mario movie that just came out. This was this summer. And they wanted to learn the song Peaches in the movie, which is a piano ballad. None of them are pianists. This isn't going to work. But they apparently, you know, I'm a sub, so I'm just kind of doing whatever the last guy did. Apparently the last guy, or still guy, I don't know, the real teacher, would, like, do that as kind of a reward for getting through a lesson. But I'm a substitute teacher, and these kids know I don't know the program, so they're, like, bullying me into just spending the whole lesson on Peaches. You know, they're trying to anyway. So I'm like, okay, let's try to get through, like, 2 things before Peaches. They're just, like, running around in circles, yelling Peaches, 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 Peaches. You know, the whole bit. You know, it was amazing. Like, the raw power of 5-year-olds cannot be underestimated. You know, the unfocused ability to just not do what you're trying to get them to do is amazing. I've had kids, like, one time, it's always when you're focused on one, the other ones go nuts, right? Because I'm not one of those teachers that somehow has eyes in the back of my head. You know, I can't do that. So I'm trying to focus on one kid because they're actually, you know, struggling with something, trying to figure it out. The second I look away, this other kid runs out of the room and goes into another one. So then I'm like, what do I do? I'm one person. I can't be in here to watch these kids while I go find that kid. I ended up, like, sending one of the older kids that was, like, kind of helping me to go fetch that one, but they weren't able to find this kid. Oh, wow. So then I had to go look, and I couldn't find it either. But while I'm looking, the kid who was still in the room did find that kid and brought them back. So sometimes they can work themselves out, but sometimes they conspire against you. You know, like, sometimes one of them will be up on the windowsill, and I'm like, oh, let's not be on the windowsill. That's not safe. And then the other one turns the lights off, and I'm like, let's not turn the lights off, because one of us is on the windowsill, and if we can't see what we're doing, we're going to, like, fall and die. So it's just like, oh. Again, though, not really. I'm not sure how I would fix that problem if I was... It might not even be a problem depending on how you look at it, especially if you're a parent, because that might be the exact thing you're trying to offload. So, you know, I get it. really difficult for me to deal with, though. I'm not built for that. I'm built for, like, focusing on... Basically, if a kid already has passion for music, that's the kind of kid I'm trying to teach, just because the way I feel about it, like the way I try to teach is geared towards helping the kid do what they want to do. And if what the kid wants to do is just nothing, like if they just want to flip around, I don't know what to do about that. That is the eternal teacher's conundrum. And when you're working with like a studio, you don't really have the power to like eject a student if they're being disruptive or like really do anything about it. So, and also some of them are like real crafty, like some of them are like, I'm not going to overdo it so much that you actually are justified to kick me out. I'm just going to like run around incessantly. So, and I get it, that was me when I was learning piano. I get it. I've been there. I've been that kid, I was a little hellion when I was a kid, so I understand. But really hard to deal with, when your job is just to, like, keep the kids chugging along. Very difficult.
This episode of Self-Made is sponsored by Lessonaire. That's right, guys. For this first episode, we are sponsoring ourselves. Lessonaire is the most affordable lessons platform that connects teachers to students for private lessons. For just $1, teachers can make their listing to a potentially unlimited number of students. So students, find your teachers through Lessonaire, and teachers, make your listings. And in the end, financial freedom is going to prevail. So a huge thank you to ourselves for sponsoring this episode. Visit the link in the description to learn more. With that being said, let's get back to the conversation. It sounds like you prefer teaching independently.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Again, I had a good experience. I don't have any beef with them. It's just like teaching on your own is the dream job. It's like that's what you wish you were doing, to some extent, no matter what.
And how do you usually go about finding students for your private lessons business?
They usually come to me.
So no advertising then? I'm
very bad at it, and there's not a lot of programs out there to help independent teachers. I wish there was something cheap and affordable that I could use to advertise my lessons. If only something like that existed.
Oh wait. It does.
What? What could this possibly be?
This episode was sponsored by Lessonaire.
Tell me about Lessonaire.
So how did you... It sounds like you have had some experiences with advertising your lessons.
Yeah, I mean,
what was that process like, and what platforms did you use, if any?
Well, I'm not a Craigslist guy. I'm not a Facebook ads guy. That stuff is just, I don't want to deal with figuring out all the weird fees and back end stuff on that. So, I'm pretty much a poster guy. I go and I put posters up in places when I was looking for students. But I haven't quite gotten to that point in my like teaching career where I've had the time to full-time teach, cause pretty much, when I'm not at school, I would teach, and I don't have to advertise for that, which is, again, actually I want to talk about that really briefly. Just that was one of the nicer things about, there's a lot of back end, this kind of stuff you don't have to deal with. That's like the big advantage.
All the advertising and finding
all that stuff. It is a trade-off. Again, from like the employee perspective, like it's not. That's why I don't say I hate or anything. It wasn't personally suited to me in every aspect, but there was a lot of work I didn't have to do. There was a lot of parts of the job that I don't like taxes. That I didn't have to really deal with. I just got my W-2. It's pretty much all the back end stuff you don't have to worry about. You're just a normal employee and you don't have to manage, you don't have to advertise, that kind of thing. Because working on my own, the only reason I really even have students is because they either approach me or like me and my family will just be on like a social media platform and see, oh, somebody needs a lesson, So if I was actually if I was in the job market, if I wasn't like in school and I needed to fully support myself and didn't have like a job, like if I was having to rely on lessons to like pay my bills. You know, because like the only students I've ever had were pretty much just from like they put out ads, or like I would just be like, hey, do you want lessons? And they're like, yeah, actually I was gonna ask you that, you know. And also, again, I've been like dunking on kids a lot. There are really good ones out. Like, not every kid student is a little hellion. Some of them are like really invested. I did have one also over the summer, actually the summer before this one, who was like a younger kid and was like really invested and really into it. And those were fun lessons, you know. And that was independent. That was off Facebook. But like, actually, you know what? I did put out an ad for teaching once, and it got no replies. So I guess that kind of that was pretty. It was rough.
What platform was it through?
I think it was Facebook. I'm pretty sure it was Facebook, and it like I got like nothing, you know, because it's like, I guess simultaneously like, I don't even know actually. I'm not a big Facebook guy,
yeah.
So.
And that is the thing with teaching independently is if you put an ad out, there is no guarantee.
Yeah,
that's why the ad has to be. You have to look at what everyone else is doing and then put your ad up to the next level.
Yeah, and it's just a rough business, really. You know, I think like a lot of people in that kind of position of like I'm trying to teach full time, really need a lot more resources and like, there's I think holes in the market for like effective advertising that I remember when I saw like the Lessonaire thing, you know, like in Instagram, I actually did like I was like, that's a good idea actually. That's
and
solid.
So how do you think Lessonaire can benefit teachers and students?
Pretty much I think you're gonna have like that problem of how do I get into the first store, right? Because you know, if people don't know to look on Lessonaire, people aren't going to advertise on there, right? So the big problem, I think, for Lessonaire starting up here is going to be just getting that user base up and advertising, you know. Like, you want guitar lessons, look on Lessonaire, that kind of thing. But just the model of $1 for an ad, that's huge. You know, like, I actually think that's huge because, like, that's so simple. You know, that's like a place where a student can go. It's simple for the student too, because like I don't have to go on Facebook and then specify I'm looking for a guitar ad, or Craigslist and specify I'm looking for a guitar teacher and then weed through 50 million people. You could filter by, because this is pretty specific to like teaching, you know, this isn't just selling stuff.
Oh yeah.
So because it's a more focused format, you could really make it specific so that if I'm looking for lessons, I can narrow things down to somebody who will fit me really well. And as a teacher, I can, because I can create a really specific ad. You know, I saw that you already have like filters on there for like genre and stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
We have filters for instrument.
Yeah, instrument.
So, yeah.
And you also had something for like English tutoring and stuff like that, right? Because it's not just music.
Yeah, and then that might be something we want to add as well as genre and experience level.
I think if you haven't already talked about that, it crossed my mind. I don't know if it was my idea or if you actually had it in the thing you had on Instagram. But either way, genre filter, massive. It would be so nice if you could just put in teachers rock and you just see what comes up in your area as well. I think you do have a location filter, right?
There is a location filter.
I think that's what I was thinking of. That's huge. Location filter, genre. Instead of having to search rock and then you get like teachers who just have the word rock somewhere in their profile, you know. Instead, you could have like a specific filter or like a tag that says on my end, I am a rock teacher, and then the student could put in rock and try to learn from a rock or jazz or whatever. And then on top of that, like you said, experience level, that could go both ways. Teaching, you know, do I want my student to already be kind of advanced? Am I a teacher is more geared towards that, or am I more of like a Marty music type? Like, I'm going to show you how to play your chords and stuff, and then just get you comfortable with the instrument. You know, like what the teacher's looking for in the student, as well as have I taught a lot? Have I been teaching for decades, or is it someone more like me who like has some experience but maybe isn't like, hasn't taught full time yet, hasn't, like, I guess I would say I'm like moderately experienced because I did, do a lesson or I did do like a lesson studio for a while. I've taught on and off for a while, but, or somebody's completely new like I was when I was new, so like, I think the ability to get really granular in the search would be massive because you could get like, it'd just be easier to find a teacher and easier for the right students to find you. Because I've also had like students who I just wasn't the right fit for, like in the studio and outside of the lesson studio, right? Sometimes like you're looking for like help with just strumming. And I'm just not that kind of teacher, that came so instinctive to me, and that's so, that's kind of more of a acoustic thing. And I play on one of these, I play on one of these. No, I want to show off the guitar. So like I'm more suited for like single note stuff, that's what I focus on. I'm at Berklee, as well as I do. We all know the chords here. But like that's not what I'm not a jangly guy, I'm not a chord guy, I'm a let's play some rock, man, Yeah. And I feel like being able to not only have really specific tags but also like a description and that kind of stuff, all that kind of stuff would be I think really just the thing that speaks to me about your platform is just like the concept of having like kind of
Wow. You're not making me look so good right now.
What is the word I'm after? Oh my god. Whatever. I'll just use the same word again. A platform specific to teaching. So that all of the tags and everything can be geared towards finding the right teacher.
Is the word specialized?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it is. And because specialized makes it simple. It makes it easier. I don't have to read through 50 things, 50 ads for people who are jazz instructors to find a rock instructor, Because again, if like my username on Craigslist or like my email has rock in it, I'm going to come up when you search rock guitar teacher. Yeah. So if you have like a tag system, that level of specificity would simplify it on both ends of the process, on for the student and for the teacher. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great feedback. And I've had other teachers tell me the same thing where they want the platform you should be able to specify it as much as possible and find the teacher that fits your exact needs.
The tricky part about that will be like making sure you don't over prioritize the tags, right? Because if I don't put in certain tags, you don't want the search to be kind of fudged because of that. I've seen issues like that before and stuff like Reverb where like if you don't put in like, I don't even know what I'm saying, but like I hopefully you can kind of get what I mean. Like I've had situations where like the right result comes up if you do put in a tag, but not if you leave that empty. So you want to avoid that. I don't know what technical glitch causes that, but additionally, this is huge. On Reverb, you will have like search by decade, and if I put in like 1980s, you'll get people who have 80s reissues. So when you're designing that like search system, make sure that like just because a phrase is there, it doesn't come up. Like if I have a teacher who says I play with jazz 3 picks, for some reason they put that in their profile, it doesn't come up as a jazz teacher. You have to make sure it's specifically like a tag. Okay. I think that would be the huge advantage about this platform because you could get that granular with your tag. It would make sense to have tags like that on Craigslist.
It would.
Because you're trying to accommodate lessons and people who are just selling stuff. So like it wouldn't make sense to have like a tag for rock teacher, because if I'm trying to sell a couch, that's just going to confuse me. I don't want to have to scroll through 50 million tags pertaining to lessons when I'm trying to sell a couch or when I'm trying to buy a couch. But like, because this is a lesson platform, I think you have the opportunity to get that granular and nobody would just scroll past it because it would actually be important to everybody who's using the platform. So I think that's a really cool like advantage that you would have in this space. That level of specificity.
That's great feedback.
Yeah.
Garrett, thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you for doing this.
I apologize for the editing mess that this will be.
I am fully prepared for it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it is good. Well, Garrett, you still haven't taken out that first ad yet, so I'm a little disappointed in you. But other than that, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I loved what he had to say about personalizing lessons and letting the student guide the lesson. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Lessonaire YouTube channel so you don't miss the next episode. The Self-Made podcast is available on YouTube and on Spotify. With that being said, I hope you will choose to tune in to the next episode of Self-Made. Thanks, everybody.